I don't wanna waste my life. 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 Sometimes when the beat hits, it's just some things there's no going back. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not the one with the issues. I hear you, now here is your tissue. If I'm moving too fast, I might have to dismiss you. And it's really too bad, cause I really will miss you. But I'm not the one with the issues. I left them at church when I made it official. I murdered the curse with my own benediction. Left God in the dirt, call it death of the fiction. Superstition will be serving eviction. Competition will be left in a ditch. Oh my God, it's too damn hot in this kitchen. The fishes are men, I'm not sleeping with fishes. Oops, my bad, I guess I'm moving too vicious. Verses sold, I gotta put them on your wish list. Bless my soul, cause I'm dodging your little hit list. I guess you know you just lost another witness. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go right now. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, I'm out of here. I can do anything, fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epiphany, my biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me, I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity, when it gets rough I can pick myself up and prevail. Cause I don't need anything other than people who fuck with me. Good business, it starts with your company. That's why your boy is obsessed with community. Cause greater is we can create opportunity. Doing what God never did, cause a God never could. But a people is all we need. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go.
What's up and welcome in everybody on this beautiful Wednesday. Dang, I love that song so much. Welcome in on this beautiful Wednesday. It's noon for me. I don't know what time it is for you, wherever you are, but listen, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad that you're here spending a little time, sharing a little bit of your time with me for another conversation. Man, this has been an incredibly busy week. If you missed it, last night I had an incredible conversation with Dr. Amy McDowell. She's an associate professor of sociology at the University of Mississippi and just wrote an incredible book. I still have it next to me, so I'll show it to you. Just released an incredible book called Whispers in the Pews. And it's an incredible book exploring evangelical uniformity in a divided America. And we had a great conversation about it last night. And if that type of stuff floats your boat, make sure you go and check out that conversation. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed it. Also, last night, and I told you this has been a busy week, last night, our deconstruction club at Bridge City has clubs and stuff like that going on. They have activities and events and stuff like that. Last night, they hosted their first, what they're calling their nuts and bolts conversations. And I had the privilege and the honor of leading that discussion. And it was a group of us in there. I did a little bit of talking, and the rest of it was really just us going back and forth, talking about the different ways that people leave religion. One of the high points that I want to share from that before we jump into today's conversation is that deconstruction is not synonymous with leaving religion. Some people leave and never deconstruct. Everybody who leaves didn't deconstruct, and everybody who deconstructed didn't leave. And the reason why we shared that, and I'm not going to go into all of it, maybe I'll do a whole separate video on it, or you can go to our campus right now, bridgecity.app/hello. If it's your first time, you can go to the campus right now and head to our event section, and you will actually be able to see the recording from that conversation. But we talked about all the different reasons that people leave religion, and just highlighted an underserved group who do not deconstruct. They leave for disillusionment, they leave for trauma, and realizing that the need for them necessarily isn't to deconstruct. They need something different. Some people leave religion because of exhaustion. So what they really need as far as next steps is not necessarily deconstruction, it's rest and regulation. And that speaks to so much of the work that we do. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. I'm going to jump into this chat in a few minutes. Speaking of the chat, as you're coming in, make sure you're letting us know where you're coming from. Jump in, say hello. Don't be a stranger. Don't show up in the neighborhood and don't say hey to your neighbors. Make sure you say hello, introduce yourself. Let us know where you're watching from. For all you know, you very well could be watching with your neighbor. And then you can make it a group thing. You know what I'm saying? All right, so it's so good to see so many of you in the chat already. Look at there. You know what? I'm going to do something I don't normally do on Wednesdays, but it's super casual right now, and I didn't have that many announcements. First stream, yippee, good time zone, everyone. I love it. I love it. Good day, Rain. So glad to see you in here. You're becoming a regular. I love seeing you hanging out with us. Catfish Yellow, what's up? I feel like it's been maybe a few streams since I've seen you. So glad to have you back in here. Man, that song was great. Hey, thank you so much, man. I take a lot of pride in the music that we do. I take a lot of pride in the music that I write. I take a lot of pride in the music that Zernial writes. Like, and then Jude just wrote a song for the community that'll be debuting, I think, this Sunday. You know, so thank you all so much for the kind words. That Greater Is Me. It's one of my favorites, man. I can, oh yeah. I don't need anything other than people, you know. Oh, good. I'm not the only one who thinks you're not responsible. You're not responsible for what you believe is BS. Yes. Nervous systems are just input. Thank you, Richard. Rest and some recreation. You better say that now. You better say that. Hello from Texas. Catfish is in Texas. Hey, ya. I like that. I like that. Minnesota is in the building. Come on now. Come on now. Watching from sunny Los Angeles. Hello, chat. Okay, so now you watching from sunny Los Angeles, you actually need to make sure you're on the campus. Now, I ain't trying to pressure you or nothing like that. But if you've been looking for community, we actually have a growing community in the LA area. Actually, our head of community lives not too far from LA. And I know they're going to be hosting a meetup at the end of June, I believe, where they're just going to be, I think they're meeting up at a bar or going to a beach or something like that. But it's just something that they try to do at least once a month, and they're working on doing more of it. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Yeah, these are great think tanks. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Denver is in the building. What? Captain, I don't think I knew you. Are you in Denver, Captain? I thought you were overseas. I don't know. We'll come back. We'll come back. People from all corners. I'm telling you. It's beautiful. Please do. Please definitely do. Oh, snap. I can't take whole credit for the new song. The music club collaborated on it during our songwriting session. I just finished the last 2 verses that we didn't have time to get to in the group. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Jude. And that's a perfect place to plug our music club. Those are the type of things that they do. So if any of you are watching, you're like, I'm musically inclined and I've been looking for a way to get involved in music. And let's be honest, sometimes when it comes to being atheist or secular, for whatever reason, music gets, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying it just becomes monotone, if you get my drift. But after a while, music just becomes for the whole purpose of antagonizing Christians instead of encouraging us, instead of lifting us up, instead of telling our stories. And that's why I write music. I write music for the people I love. You know what I'm saying? I write music for the stories I want to tell. I write music for the outcomes I want to see. And so that's what we do. Now, I'm not saying I don't play around with some mockumentary music. I do. But that should not be the whole of who we are as atheists. Our activism shouldn't be reduced to antagonism. Oh, that was, you know, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but I think those are bars. High all. I'm gonna jump into this topic real quick. I'm just trying to show the chat some love, man. We make music, and we'd love for anybody out there who loves music the way that our members do to get involved. Bring your own spin. Like, one of the things that I love about Bridge City and our community is that, this is intentional. We create space for a variety and a diversity of people and a diversity of experiences. You know, one thing, I also write fiction, and one of the things that I wrote in one of my characters in one of my novels, she tells this to her children, that everything isn't for everybody. And I think that's something that humans have to remember. And so because of that, we have hip hop. We have songs that sound more like jazz. We have songs that sound like funk. We have songs that sound like the blues. The Reciprocity song has a country swing to it. We have some heavy metal songs. Why? Because like we want to represent the rainbow, the mosaic of human experience, man. Welcome in, Monica. Great to see you back in here. Like, we had a long night last night and you made it right back in. That's what I'm talking about. Oh man. Well, I say where I'm from in my heart and get accused of trolling. And that is disappointing. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like trolling, period. I don't just period. That's one of the reasons why sound is universal, but the lyrics are personal. Come on now. Preach, Rain. Musician here also, singer and guitar player, mainly 12 string. Come on. Good old Harley Benton from Germany. Welcome in. I love that. I love that. Just found your channel, listened to few, subscribed. Man, I appreciate y'all. Y'all are awesome. All right, are y'all ready to get into this conversation today? Today we're going to be talking about, if you've never heard this phrase before, the turn of phrase we're going to be talking about today is epistemic responsibility. All right. And the title that I've given this video is "You Are Responsible for What You Believe." Okay. Now, again, I don't claim to be anybody's source of truth. I don't claim to be the end all to be all. I don't claim to be an authoritative voice in anybody's lives other than my own. I don't even exercise that type of authority in my children's life. You know what I'm saying? But what I try to do is just be a point of reference. So if you don't feel like you're responsible for your beliefs, I'm not going to say you got to convince me otherwise, but I'm going to share what I think about it. So you are responsible for what you believe. All right, so let me introduce this. This is all about epistemic responsibility. Epistemic responsibility is the idea that we have a duty to care about whether our beliefs are true, justified, and responsibly formed. And this is something that I was going through when I was going through my deconversion. The assumption or the presupposition that I accepted when I got saved at the tender age of 11 and committed my life to the ministry of Jesus Christ, serving as a ambassador in chains for the church, serving in the ministry of reconciliation. When I made that decision at the tender age of 11, it was equipped or attached to the idea that somebody took this seriously enough to verify it, to validate it, that it has to be true. Now, at the age of 11, it's not like somebody did science. I'm not looking for the data. At age 11, I'm assuming that because so many people are saying it confidently, that it must be true, that so many people are practicing it frequently, that it must be true. And all of my mentors in the faith were people who said, I know for a fact that God is real. And I used to believe that. I used to trust that. I now say that anybody who says, I know for a fact that God is real, doesn't know what at least 4 words in that sentence means. But they would say, I know for a fact that God is real, or I know for a fact that this is this. And so I assumed in just good faith that these people knew what they were talking about. And I knew that I didn't have that evidence yet. I knew that I didn't have that understanding yet. And I accepted that faith could fill that space, but that at some point the information would be verified. That's what I expected. Because I assumed that everybody who had come before me had similarly went through a similar process where you started in the beginning by faith, and then eventually you come across the evidence and concretize your faith and then say, ooh, I'm glad I believed, type of thing. That was my assumption. But my experience proved otherwise. Now, mind you, I started in the small Pentecostal holiness churches and then very quickly transitioned into more word of faith style churches, and kind of stayed with those word of faith style churches throughout the majority of my high school career. And then coming out of high school, by that time, I had been a youth pastor. I'd been a minister of music. I'd even been an associate pastor. So by that time, I was forming my own theological identity, and I was getting ready to start my first church, plant my first church. And then after planting my first church, I pivoted from the Word of Faith to more urban churches. Now, Word of Faith and my experience with Word of Faith and urban churches were all in the mega church scene. And I'm thinking, surely these people with degrees behind their names, these people who have thousands following them, these people who have a system that they built committed to this, these people who are telling dying people that they know God is waiting to meet them on the other side. I'm assuming that by this time in your life, based off of what you're professing from the platform, that this is no longer just by faith. But by this time, you've verified it because you're using terminology such as, no, I know this to be true. I know this to be true for a fact. I believe this to be true. And unfortunately, what I discovered through my experience is that many of the questions that I was asking, they had never asked. They never asked. Like one of the saddest things, one of the saddest implications to me about the state of Christianity, at least, and I speak so much about Christianity because I was a Christian. I try not to speak on stuff that I don't have relationship with. But one of the saddest things of Christianity is that the majority of pastors, forget believers for a minute, the majority of pastors believe that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are written by people named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The majority of pastors believe that these Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were all eyewitness testimonies. Now, the problem with that is that the only way you could seriously believe that is to have absolutely never done the research. That is the only way you could seriously believe that, is to absolutely have never done the research. And for me, that created something that we talked about in last night's Deconstruction Club. That created intellectual collapse for me. Oh, man. I was always trying my best to be responsible with my theology. And I was assuming that I just didn't have the right tools. I didn't have the right resources, lean not into your own understanding and all that jazz. And then I eventually figured out that the people who were telling me that they got this thing figured out have never even tried to actually figure it out. They're just running on an inherited script. And that scared the hell out of me because I was like, oh shit, Darante, you spent the past 2 decades of your life following dumbasses. And that's not a good thing to do. So again, epistemic responsibility is the idea that we have a duty to care about whether our beliefs are true, justified, and responsibly formed. I've shared this story on this channel so many times, but I think it bears repeating. I remember in 2014, when I was in the throes of my deconversion, sitting down watching a documentary, I thought, on mermaids. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like mermaids. It was about the aquatic ape theory. And I'm watching it, in 15 minutes in, I'm like, holy shit, mermaids are real. And the government are trying to hide them from us. And they're a part of evolutionary, blah, 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 blah. Now, mind you, I don't have any reason to jump to that conclusion other than the fact that the people on the television screen are saying it. But I was completely bought in until the end when the credits started running. And I'm looking like, oh, this is fiction. I just got. And the conclusion that I came to is not that these people just lied to me. Now, whether they were trying to pass something off as real or not real is an entirely different conversation. But what I had to wrestle with is, Darante, oh, it's on you, bro. It's on you for believing something after watching it. You completely skip the verification process. You completely skip the validation process. So again, epistemic responsibility is the idea that we have a duty to care about whether our beliefs are true. I know, man. I'm like, I got to tell the truth. I got to be transparent. I believed it, but we have a duty to care about whether our beliefs are true, whether those beliefs are justified, and whether those beliefs are responsibly formed. And so throughout my deconversion process, I realized that my beliefs had not been responsibly formed. They had been gracefully received, but not responsibly formed. Okay. Now, this is not about being smart. This is not about winning debates. This is not just about having sources ready when somebody asks. To me, all of those are shortcuts to understanding that don't necessarily get to the point. This is about recognizing that beliefs have consequences. Your beliefs impact your behavior. If you believe badly, you will behave badly. There's really no way around that. Okay. So just to give a just to give an example, if you believe that God is the greatest thing in the world, or let's do it this way. If you believe that God wrote the Bible, then you will behave according to the characteristics of the Bible. And the characteristics of the Bible are all based on a people who were too early in societal development to know better. And so, like, I think we could all agree in most cases scenario, if we started acting like we acted, 2,500 years ago, then we'd be behaving badly. Sacrificing children is behaving badly. Okay. And so even though we're not in mass throwing children on altars, which don't get it twisted, things like this still happen in Christianity, but there are Christian parents who absolutely will sacrifice their relationships with their kids because of their beliefs. So believing badly is correlated with behaving badly. And when I talk about badly, I'm not even just talking about morality. If you believe in things that cannot be verified, you are more vulnerable to scams, MLMs, conspiracy theories, which ultimately will not put your life in a productive place. Damn, this stuff ain't in my notes. It's just flowing right now. About finding dragon bones. I did not see that. Wrestling is not fake. You know what? On that topic, wrestling had me convinced that Kane and the Undertaker were really brothers. You know what I'm saying? So the things we believe shape the people we trust, the people we dismiss, the communities we join, the leaders we defend, the accusations we spread, the harms we excuse, and the futures we help build. So the question is not merely, do I have a right to believe this? That's not the question. The question is, what kind of responsibility comes from believing this? What kind of responsibility comes from believing this? It was narrated by Patrick Stewart. I love Patrick Stewart. From Star Trek to X-Men. He's the only Charles Xavier I like, because I actually don't like Charles Xavier. Was never a fan. So we live in a world where people treat belief like personal possession. It's my truth, my opinion, my perspective, my experience, my interpretation. And to be clear, everybody has a perspective. I constantly talk about, I view myself as the blind man touching the elephant, and everybody else are equally blind touching another part of the elephant. And so they're judging their life by their experiences. I'm judging my life by my experiences, recognizing that both my experience and their experience are recognize that my understanding and both their understanding are limited, but by understanding each other's understandings, by understanding each other's experiences, we get a better view of the world we share. So yes, everybody has a perspective, everybody has a lived experience, everybody sees the world from somewhere. The way you see the world is based on your location in it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, the way you see the world is based on your location in it. Geopolitically, sociologically, psychologically. No, the way you see the world is based on your location in it. But once your belief leaves your private mind and starts shaping public behavior, it's no longer just your truth. It becomes part of the social environment that the rest of us have to live in. So if your belief causes you to lie on people, demonize people, dismiss evidence, excuse harm, spread misinformation, protect abusers, or turn communities into mobs, then your belief is not harmless. This is why epistemic responsibility matters, because belief is not just something you hold. Belief is something you do. Belief is how you belief. Belief is how you're committed to show up in society. Belief is how you're committed to behave. Once I have an understanding of belief, for me, I have an understanding of your behavior. I have some expectations of your behavior. Man. Oh, let's go. So let's break it down a little bit. Epistemic responsibility is the duty to care about how we know what we claim to know. It's the duty to care about how we know what we claim to know. And I'm not just talking about religious beliefs. There was a young lady in my state who was running for Congress about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, it has to be. Dang, it has to be, because we were living in an old house. But she was running for Congress, and through a good friend of mine, they wanted to do a type of an interview. And they were actually hoping at this time to get me back in the realm of religion, because it was just like, come on, man, you know, you're such a great voice. Let's get you back on the bandwagon. And because when I left religion, I left a lot of things. It wasn't just religion that I left. A lot of illusions were shared for me, including popular politics in a lot of cases. So she was running, obviously, and she was giving all of these great grand plans of what will work for the Black community. She was saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And in the middle of the interview, I just stopped and asked one very specific question. Can you give me one example in history where this strategy has worked in a race-based situation, in a race-based context? And she just went blank. Just went blank. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll make it a little easier. Can you give me one example in history where this strategy has worked regardless of a race-based context? Still, nothing. And so I'm like, so wait a minute. You're asking people to bet on you. You're asking people to gamble on you. You're asking people to throw their support behind you based on this plan that you're giving us. But I just exposed that you've not even attempted to validate this plan. We have a history replete of social change, social revolutions, regime change, and all different types of things. And you didn't look at none of those to get some ideas of what we could be doing. So where are you getting your confidence from? Epistemic responsibility is the duty to care about how we know what we claim to know. How do you know it? I don't care that you claim to know it. How do you know it? Where are you getting your confidence from? What's up, Andrew from Texas? See, there's a few of y'all in Texas. See, y'all in Texas, y'all need to get on Bridge City Global, bridgecity.app, and meet with other people in Texas. We got people in Florida meeting up. We got people in California meeting up. Come on now. Come on now. Okay, let me get back. So, caring about how we know something. So if I say, well, how do you know this? Well, everybody knows this. Well, that doesn't answer the question. If I say, how do you know this? Well, I just really need to believe this. That doesn't answer the question. And if anything, it shows, and I'm just going to say it frank, like, because this was me, the phrasing that I used when I was deconverting was mental lethargy, just laziness of thought. And the fact is, when it comes to our beliefs, we have been absolutely lazy. And again, that's not just our belief about religion, that's our beliefs about other people. If you determine how you treat other people based off what you see on television, that's an epistemic responsibility problem. How do you know what you know? How do you know it? Ignorance is not knowing, intelligence is not knowing what you know. Intelligence is knowing what you don't know. Okay, that's what keeps me protected, knowing what I don't know. That's what keeps me from jumping on everybody's bandwagon, knowing what I don't know. Okay. So it means asking hard questions to yourself, like, do I actually know this? Do I actually know this? What evidence do I have? Oh, here's a good one. Is my source reliable? Not just that I have a source. Is my source reliable? Okay. Is my source reliable? Am I believing this because it's true? Or am I believing this because it's convenient right now? Am I reacting emotionally, and calling it discernment? Now, and this is something I did all throughout my belief career, if you will, and then even a little bit after it. I'm still vulnerable to this. Something is emotionally reactive. It's emotionally compelling. It resonates with you. You want to believe it. You want to believe it. It resonates with you. You want to believe it, and you want to call it discernment. This is one thing that I will harshly criticize people on my team for, is calling your emotional reaction evidence. Evidence is evidence. Data is evidence. Well, I just have an intuition that, no, we're not going to play that game. To me, that sounds too much like discrimination. To me, that sounds too much like prejudice. To me, that feels too much like bias. Well, I just know people like them. Ooh. Oh, see, I just felt a chill go down my back. You just know people like them? That's where you want to hit one of them lines like, what you mean, you people? Tropic Thunder just dropped up in my head. There's that neurospicy. No. Evidence. I'm not saying you don't have to distance yourself because of your intuition. You can. Distance yourself. But before you make a judgment call of who somebody else is, man, before you make a judgment call on the truthiness of something else, well, Darante, it just felt like it was true. What does that even mean? I don't know what true feels like. True is not a feeling, it's a fact. Okay. Am I confusing confidence with credibility? You know what I'm saying? Am I confusing confidence with credibility? And I'm convinced we don't know what credibility is anymore. If right now, if I start cussing, some of you will be like, oh, see, man, I thought you were credible until you start cussing. What does cussing have to do with the validity of the information? Dude, I thought you was credible until I saw those big ass glasses. What do the glasses have to do with the credibility of the information? One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is stupid. We have to hold ourselves responsible for how we know what we know. Am I repeating something because I verified it or because it came from my side? And that's been like the oddest thing that I've seen in the atheist community. For a community to pride itself on critical thinking and yet spread so much misinformation just because it matches their side. You see something that talks about your bad guy and it's like, oh, I'm gonna share it. Oh, I'm gonna share it. What happened to epistemic responsibility? What happened to critical thinking? What happened to skepticism? Where did it go? But I'm afraid that we've confused skepticism with cynicism. We have something that we're mad at, and that's what we're hyper-focused on. Just a few months ago, like, this is an arbitrary stat, but I just, I got to speak in it. Like, I'd say roughly 75% of people, I'm not going to say that. That's just so irresponsible. I'm not going to say that. A few months ago, a lot of people spread a false story about the war in Iran being a holy war because there was so much about it that could be true. But there were so many false details applied. But here's the thing. Even if there weren't any false details, reading an article is not the same thing as verifying the information in the article. And I'm concerned that we're not training people, nor are we giving people the resources to actually learn how to verify things on themselves. We're just changing the authority where they get their information from, which is still a level of fallacious thought. I don't need you to think something is true because I think it is true. My confidence does nothing for you. No, I don't need you to believe something is true because I believe it is true, which is one of the reasons I am never offended when someone has a different belief than I have. They have access to different information than I had. My question is, did they verify the belief that they have? Different or not? Okay. So epistemic responsibility is not about pretending we can be perfectly objective. It's about being honest enough to know that we're not. Intelligence is not knowing what you know. It's knowing what you don't know. So you can come to me and say, Darante, well, these people are just bad. I know what I don't know. And what I don't know is I don't know these people. I'm not like I'm just going to be flat out frank. The atheist YouTube space has been mad at me for a year and a half now. Actually 2 years. Because when they wanted to publicly dehumanize and shame somebody for not completely aligning with them, I said, I don't do that. That's not who I am. I don't know these people in order to exert a judgment that I am willing to invest energy into trying to tear them down. That's not who I am. I get that's the playground that you play on. I'm a grown ass man. I have kids, 4 of them. And none of them engage in behavior like that. I tell people all the time, I left the church to get up from the kiddies table, not to get back at it just because it has an atheist hat on. Not interested in that. Why? Because it is not epistemically responsible. I am not going to borrow your confidence. Okay. So just to add a little philosophy to this, I want to introduce to you a principle that's commonly referred to as Clifford's principle, popularized by W.K. Clifford. And it says, I should have put this in a chat. It is wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. This is called the Clifford's principle. It is wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. Just to simplify, it is wrong to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. Clifford, he attached it with a parable just to kind of make it make sense. And I love this parable. He says a ship owner sends a vessel out to sea full of passengers. He knows the ship is old and needs repairs, but he dismisses his doubts, rationalizes that it has survived many voyages before, and sincerely trusts in providence. The ship sinks and the passengers die. Clifford argues that the ship owner was guilty of their deaths, watch this, even if the ship hadn't sunk. Okay? Okay? See, like when I was going through deconversion, it didn't matter that the church hadn't fallen apart yet. I was guilty of epistemic irresponsibility, even if the ship hadn't sunk. Okay? Because I dismissed my doubts. I rationalized inconsistencies and trusted in providence, in mystery, in God. Something that I could not verify. Having other people's lives involved. So even if they make it, making it is just a luck of the draw. It was still irresponsible. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like if you steal something and you get away with it, it's still irresponsible. I like Clifford's principle, and I like his parable here. And it's something that I really do kind of relate to. And is something that I think we've seen in recent time, just like what that real danger is. Because it's not just this isn't something that's just in a thought experiment. No, we've seen this stuff. Okay, we've seen this stuff. Oh man, do y'all remember Ocean Gate? Y'all remember Ocean Gate? Ocean Gate had a submersible called the Titan. The Titan disaster was not simply a tragedy of exploration. It became a public example of what happens when confidence outruns evidence. When confidence outruns evidence, safety concerns had been raised. Questions existed about certification, testing, materials, design, and oversight. According to the U.S. Coast Guard's investigation, the disaster was preventable and involved serious failures in engineering protocols, inspection, maintenance, and safety culture. It was preventable. And that's what I want to say. The disasters that we are living in today were all preventable. Not all. That's absolute. The majority of the disasters that we have created, the majority of the tragedies that we have caused were all preventable, but we have consistently allowed confidence to outrun evidence under the guise of providence. Damn, that was good. We have consistently allowed confidence to outrun evidence under the guise of providence. Clifford's idea was just a parable. We've seen it in real life now. We've seen people lose their lives. You don't get to call warning signs fear. You don't get to call expert concern negativity. They just hating. You do not get to call verification a lack of faith. You don't get to call recklessness vision. And that's the danger that Clifford was pointing to. The issue is not simply what you believe. The issue is whether you had the right to believe it. What gave you the justification for this belief? You know, I often tell people that common sense is the worst kind of sense to have because I've met the common folk. That's a Mark Twainism, if you will. But you know, so Clifford argues, as we could say in the same case of OceanGate, even if OceanGate did not implode, even if the Titan didn't implode, the owner would still be responsible, still be morally responsible. You know? So Clifford argues that the ship owner was guilty of their deaths, even if the ship hadn't sunk. The guilt is in the formation of the belief without sufficient evidence, not just the outcome. Another modern parallel, again, casual retweets or shared unverified screenshot isn't just sharing an opinion. It's launching a ship that might be broken. Clifford is challenging the lazy assumption that belief is morally neutral. Belief is not morally neutral. He's saying that careless belief can be a form of wrongdoing, not because you got the answer wrong, but because you did not take the responsibility of belief seriously. Now you have to think about this. I gave you an interesting statistic or interesting fact. It's just fact at this moment that the majority of pastors in the United States believe that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote the New Testament. And they also believe that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were eyewitnesses of everything that was going on in the Gospels. And I'm sorry, I meant the Gospels, not the New Testament. So the thing is, the only way you can believe that, and mind you, let me put it this way. The majority of pastors believe that, not the majority of Christian academics, not the majority of Christian scholars. There is a minority of Christian scholars. And when I say minority, I mean less than a fraction of a fraction that would even suggest that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written by anybody named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So the only way the majority of our pastors could believe that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is that they had to have never looked at it. They had to have never researched it. They had to have never asked the question of the authoricity of these books, let alone the historicity. They've never confirmed it. Okay. Now that's shameful in itself. That's absolutely flabbergasting. That's flabbergasting. That works. No, that's shameful. But beyond that, not only have you not verified it, but you are using it to determine how you treat other people. You are using it to determine who is acceptable in your church and who is not. You are using it to determine who is worthy of being treated like a human being and who is not. And you did not care enough to verify it. But let's bring it home a little more, because it does not stop at pastors. It trickles down to parents, because then you have a parent who says, I believe that this is true. And I know for a fact that this is true, and yet you are out here mistreating your babies over something that you didn't even have the decency to verify. You are kicking your children out of the house over their identity and their experience over something that you weren't even disciplined enough to research yourself. You are worse than a hypocrite at that moment. That is the danger we have created by not taking epistemic responsibility seriously. How is this not a course in primary ages? How is this not a class in primary school? Okay. I'm sorry. I did not mean to snap. I did not mean to snap. But this is real. Belief is not private when behavior is public. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating belief like it only affects them. I used to always say this: religious belief is not a private belief. Religious belief is not what you believe about yourself. Religious belief is what you believe about the world you live in. It's what you believe about the people who live in that world. It's what you believe about the other living beings that you're sharing that world with. It's what you believe about the state of the world. None of those are private. All of that is in the realm of the public arena. Belief affects action. If I believe a group of people is dangerous, I will treat them differently. If I believe a victim is lying, I may participate in their public humiliation. If I believe my leader is chosen by God, I may excuse behavior I would condemn in anyone else. If I believe criticism is persecution, I may never be accountable. If I believe my community is always right, I may become blind to the harm my community causes. This is why bad beliefs are not just personal errors. They can become social weapons. And at this moment in the United States, no different than what it did 50 years ago or 50 years before that or 50 years before that, this country is weaponizing bad belief. It is weaponizing bad belief. That's why there is such an attack on the social sciences. That's right. That's right. Weaponizing bad belief. Okay. So I want to throw in some pillars here of epistemic responsibility. I've gone much faster today than I thought I was going to go. But the first one is intellectual humility. All right. I'm going back again. Intelligence is not knowing what you know. It's knowing what you don't know. Blind man touching the elephant. I'm blind. This is an elephant, but I don't know it's an elephant because I'm blind. So whatever I'm feeling, oh shit, this got good. I know a lot of things, right? Watch this. I'm blind. I'm touching. I'm feeling, trying to see what it is. Okay. I may not know what it is. I may not know anything about the world I'm participating in yet. But the one thing I do know is that I'm blind. Okay. See, that's intellectual humility. Intellectual humility is knowing your own blind spots. And that's what makes intelligent people really gifted, I hate to use that word, at identifying non-intelligent people. Because we can recognize when someone is talking from a blind spot. You know, like one of my favorite questions to ask somebody when they start just saying a whole bunch of confident stuff, and I think some of you may have been around me a few times to see me do it, is how do you know? And that's the face I make too. How do you know? How you know that? How you come to that conclusion? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you get there? I see why you felt that, but how did you confirm that? So intellectual humility is not weakness. It's the ability to say, I might be wrong. I need to check that. I don't know enough yet. I may be reacting instead of reasoning. I may have inherited this belief instead of investigating it. Humility does not mean having no convictions. It means your convictions are disciplined enough to be corrected. And the abandonment of correction is the rejection of improvement. If you can't handle correction, you can't improve. And see, here's the thing. This is what I want you to understand about people who can't handle correction. Yeah. People who can't handle correction from you can't handle it because they do not correct themselves. And this is why the work that I do is not designed to change people's minds. It's to create spaces that gives them the tools and the safety where they can change their own mind. Because a lot of people got some deep internal work that they need to do. Before I'm even like, I'm not about to waste my time with you. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. So that's intellectual humility. The next one is evidence-based belief. And I absolutely love that. Prioritizing skepticism over cynicism. Evidence-based belief means you do not let emotion, tradition, convenience, outrage, loyalty, or identity do the work that evidence is supposed to do. No. A few years ago, there were like two major scams floating around in the church community. One was like these blessing loom things, came with these really, really creative stories that resonated with people in African American cultures by saying, yeah, this is what we brought over from Africa. And this is something that we do over there to do well. And I'm like, that's a red flag. Okay. And they say, yeah. And what we do is we all just put money in every week, and then every week some money come out. And I'm like, okay. And then they say, and then people get rich. I'm like, all righty then. This does not sound sustainable, nor does it sound scalable. I don't hear any mechanics in this at all. And so I had friends who were pastors who were promoting this to their members because they had gotten excited about it. And there was some Bitcoin stuff going on around the same time. And they would all come to me and try to bring it to me. And they'd say, oh, yeah, Darante's smart. He'll know. And they bring it to me, and I give them my thing. It's not scalable. It doesn't have a product. This is a scam. This meets all the red flags of a scam. And it's like, no, you just hating. You're just being negative. See, that's what happens when you leave God. You can't see opportunity anymore. Evidence-based belief means you do not let emotion, tradition, convenience, outrage, loyalty, or our identity do the work that evidence is supposed to do. Shortly after high school, somebody did a prepaid legal presentation at the church. Prepaid legal was an MLM at the time. I don't know if they still are. And it wasn't even one of the worst ones. It had, at least it had a product. But they were really trying to get me in, and they're convincing me that, oh, if you come in, Darante, you're going to make so much money, bruh. You're going to make so much money. And as a young Black kid in the South, where there is no opportunity for intelligent Black kids, I was like, okay, this might be a route. And it's like, okay, then all you got to do is pay such and such amount of money to get started. And I was like, whoa, you just told me this thing made you rich. The evidence of that would be you paying my way to get in. And if you can't do that, I ain't interested. I'm not about to put no money in this. I'm not putting money in this because you haven't showed me any evidence. The only thing you've given me are anecdotes. The only thing you've given me are claims. You haven't actually showed me how you verify those claims. You flashed money on the screen. You showed cars and stuff like that. And yeah, that gets the juices flowing for sure. I'm like, oh, look at that. That's nice. I could be driving that. Oh, I could be eating that. That's really nice. But none of that is enough information for me to believe that this actually works the way that you say that it's working. Oh, man. Pull-out game strong. Evidence-based belief means you do not let emotion, tradition, convenience, outrage, loyalty, or identity do the work that evidence is supposed to do. This is why when people ask me, when did I start deconstructing? I was like, I started deconstructing from day damn one. That's why I moved around from like denomination to denomination, because I was like, oh, this seems like bullshit. This isn't lining up. This is incoherent. And then, of course, the more I switch, I get into more progressive theology. And then eventually I realized we're just moving the goalpost over and over again, and I'd done that enough. Because now, by that time, I'm like, nope, the same way I'm requiring the evidence of other things, I've got to require the evidence here. This matters because people often do not believe things because they are true. They believe things because those beliefs serve a function. Some beliefs comfort us. Some protect our identity. Some keep us connected to our group. Some beliefs help us feel superior. Some beliefs help us avoid accountability. Epistemic responsibility asks the question, is this belief true or is it just useful to my ego? As a former Black nationalist, that's one thing that bothered me about my work in that community. And it bothered my mentors as well, who are all long gone, my mentors in that community. They were long gone before I came around, but it bothered them too. They called it ego worship. You know, we're supposed to be solving a problem, and instead we're out here worshiping our ego. No, I need some results. And then the third one, so we got intellectual humility, we got evidence-based belief, and these are 3 pillars of epistemic responsibility. And this third one is active verification. Active verification. This means you do not just ask whether a claim feels believable. And again, I don't know what feels believable even means, other than confirmation bias. And I'm working on a wonderful model to show people how confirmation bias actually works. Because most people think of confirmation bias happening like they think of it as this emotional thing. And confirmation bias is actually a cognitive reality. It's not something that any of us are exempt from. We are all vulnerable to cognitive, we're all vulnerable. Dang it, what was the word I was talking about, y'all? We are all vulnerable to confirmation bias. The way this works, let me tell you why confirmation bias works. It works because your mind, your brain is trying to reserve energy. And so it does that by having information clustered up in these data networks in your mind. And the bigger a data network is, this is my little working theory, the bigger your that data network is around a subject area, the less your brain works on information that is relative to it, because your brain says, well, I already know that. This is why we all have to be mindful of confirmation bias. It is not just prejudice, it's the prerequisite that allows prejudice to exist. It's an energy saving mechanism because there's no such thing as free energy. You know? So active verification means you do not just ask whether a claim feels believable. It is easy for a claim to feel believable. If you told me that Donald Trump kicked a baby, that would feel believable to me. That doesn't mean it's true. I still have the burden of verification. So you have to ask whether it has been checked. Who's saying it? How do they know? That's another good question that I love. Nicki Minaj a few months ago came out making a lot of political claims about things happening in Nigeria. And my question was like, how would she know? And that's not even to dismiss her. It's a valid question. And if you have a valid way of knowing, you won't be offended by the question. You'll say, I know because of X, Y, and Z. And then I would not just let it stay there. I will assess whether X, Y, and Z are actually useful in verification of the truthiness of this claim. So who's saying it? How do they know? What is their track record? What evidence would change my mind? Have I looked at the strongest counter argument? Am I only listening to people who already agree with me? When I realized that there was a gossip problem in this community, and this is why I don't like gossip. To me, I define gossip as talking about anything that you ain't got the power to do shit about. That's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. But if people bring me information and they say, hey, this person is a bad person, and I say, okay, well, who's saying this? And how do they know? Do they actually know this person, or do they parasocially know this person? Let's sit in that for a minute. Do you actually know this person, or do you parasocially know this person? This is something like I catch people up on all the time because I get on myself about it. You actually know this person? Well, I just know this person is a traitor to the community. I hear this a lot in the Black spaces. How do you know that? Do you know that person? Well, no, but I saw a clip. You saw a clip. A clip can open the door, but it cannot do the work. Ooh, that's good. That's gold. You saw a clip. That clip can open the door to your curiosity, but it cannot do the work for your confidence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I heard a soundbite. Yeah, soundbite can open the door to your curiosity, but it cannot do the work of your confidence. Only evidence can do that. Saw it up to you. Only evidence can do that. And so what evidence would change my mind? Have I looked at the strongest counter argument? And am I only listening to people who agree with me? Verification is not cynicism. It's respect for the truth. I think it's the greatest form of humanism to say, let me verify before I dehumanize anybody else. Actually, I don't find any excuse. And it's just me. I may be extreme here. I'm not saying you have to agree. I don't find any excuse acceptable for dehumanizing anybody else. Because it seems to me that everybody on all sides is fine with dehumanization as long as it's under the label that they don't like. And so then the only thing you have to do to dehumanize somebody is attach a label. It's that easy. It's that easy. We did it to gay people. The moment you called somebody gay, it made it easy to dehumanize them. Oh, no. See, if there is any excuse for dehumanizing somebody, then any excuse will do. We have to make dehumanization inexcusable. We're never going to find better ways if we're not proactively looking for, supporting, and promoting better ways. Okay. So there is real world friction in all of this. We're not just responsible for what we believe about religion and sky daddies and magical unicorns. We're responsible about what we believe about people. We're responsible about what we believe about society. We're responsible for what we believe about ourselves. Oh, imposter syndrome self. This is good stuff, man. Truth is a shared ecosystem. I need y'all to picture that. Truth is a shared ecosystem. When we pollute the information ecosystem with unverified noise, we reduce everyone's capacity to make good decisions. That's the danger. What I love about sociology is it allows us to trace the long-term impacts of decisions, of behaviors, and of outcomes. We can't predict the future, but we understand the past enough to know when we're repeating it. And so when we pollute the information ecosystem with unverified noise, we reduce everyone's capacity to make good decisions. Oh, I'm going to have to check that book out. That Escape from Capitalism. Thank you for that recommendation, Catfish, because we have normalized dehumanization. We've normalized it. So according to philosopher Miranda Fricker, when someone is discounted as a reliable source of truth due to systemic bias, which is called testimonial injustice, or when a community lacks the collective language to communicate their lived reality, which is called hermeneutical injustice, the truth is suppressed. Epistemic responsibility means actively listening to ensure we aren't silencing valid knowers. A beautiful moment that came out of my conversation with Dr. Amy last night. And again, if you have not seen it, please go watch that. I mean, Dr. Amy, PhD level sociologist, doing wonderful work, wrote an incredible book. Again, I'm going to plug it as many times as I can. Whispers in the Pews. She ain't paying me to do this, but it's a good book if you want a better understanding of evangelicalism in America. But one of the things that came out of that conversation is I was explaining to her that I'm trying to get comfortable being the person in the room that's not normal. In other words, being in rooms where the other people share something that I don't share. To me, that's a part of my epistemic responsibility. No, I need to feel like the weird one in the room every now and then, because that's how I know I'm getting exposed to something different that exists in this world. My obsession when I was in the corporate world, that's how I climbed the corporate ladder. You know, everywhere I've been, I'm a climber. I'm a climber. And anytime somebody asks, why are you moving so fast? Why are you doing this? Because I need a better view. I'm an information junkie. I'm an understanding junkie. I need a better view. I need to know how all of this works. You know? So I want to talk about this because when it comes to epistemic responsibility, these are often areas that we don't talk about often. All right. And this is, and I'm so grateful for Miranda's work on this: testimonial injustice and hermeneutical injustice. Now, hermeneutics, that's what I do. What some of you call preaching is just hermeneutics. I'm not mad at you calling it preaching. Don't call it preachy. That does rub me the wrong way. It's not your fault. It's not a you thing. It's a me thing. It's not your trigger. It's my trigger. But what most people call preaching that I do, it's just hermeneutics. It's finding a way to look at the world and give language to it in a way that other people can understand. It's an art form. It is an art form, and one of the most necessary art forms that we have on this planet. Comedians do it. You know, painters do it through visual arts. Dancers do it. All right, so let's start with testimonial injustice. Testimonial injustice is when someone is unfairly disbelieved, dismissed, or treated as less credible because of prejudice tied to their identity. So let's bring this home in the sense of atheism, because again, I grew up Black American. In many of my television shows that I grew up with, atheism was synonymous with untrustworthy. Okay, so there's this show, I can't even remember the name of it, but you can probably just type in girl brings atheist boyfriend to meet the family and it'll probably come up. But this young lady, she brings this man home that she's been meeting. I think the dude was Terrence Howard that played him. I don't know. But she brings this dude. He's a great dude, makes good money, loves her, wants to love the family. He's done nothing wrong. And then they find out he's an atheist. And then all of a sudden, he can be disbelieved, dismissed, or treated as less credible because of the prejudice tied to his identity. Okay? No. Saw this in church plenty of times. You hire someone who does music, and they do the music incredibly well. Incredibly well. And then someday, somebody who's not gay sees them at a gay bar. Now, you explain to me how somebody who's not gay is seeing somebody at the gay bar. What was you doing at the gay bar? But somebody sees them at the gay bar and then tells somebody, "Ooh, I saw them at the gay bar. Oh, now they're gay, so everything else they did is thrown out the window because I have a label that I can attach to you that makes it easier to treat you differently." Oh no, I'm gonna take it a little step further. Now, this one is gonna make you comfortable, but it fits in the same fucking paradigm. Let's say you do have a pastor that's one of the good pastors. There's few. That's one of the good pastors. Somebody who's using all the resources of the church to actually help the community that they're in. And there are a few that do this, y'all. There are a few. There are those who build recreation centers for their communities. There are those who give scholarships to their communities. There are those who help their communities learn financial literacy, who help their communities learn business management. There are those that do these things, okay? But then you find out that one of those also cheated on his wife. All right? Testimonial injustice is when someone is unfairly disbelieved, dismissed, or treated as less credible because of the prejudice tied to their identity. You understand? Do you understand? That's the reality. That's the reality. So Miranda Fricker uses this concept to show that injustice can happen in the act of listening. A person may be telling the truth, sharing knowledge, or describing something they experienced, but the listener gives their words less weight than they deserve because of race, gender, sexuality, class, disability, accent, religion, or some other social marker. You are so welcome. Or some other social marker. So the harm is not only that a person's claim is rejected, the deeper harm is that they are disrespected as a knower. They are treated as though their mind, memory, perception, or testimony is automatically less trustworthy because that before the evidence is even considered. This is why I think, I don't know if y'all saw Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Jamie Lee Curtis's sister was in that movie, who just passed away recently. But I consider that movie a masterclass on sociology. Just a masterclass, which I think it has something to do with the Pawn and the Pauper type of thing, Prince and the Pauper type of thing. But you often see someone who looks different than you and not only determine that they don't know, but that they can't know. Well, you're an atheist, you can't know. Well, you're a Christian, you can't know. Well, you're a woman, you can't know. Do you see how this thing goes? They are treated as though, okay, we see this in healthcare. Even when a patient's pain is dismissed as exaggeration. I've dealt with this in healthcare plenty of times. Plenty of times. I live with chronically high blood pressure. Chronically high blood pressure. I go in, they want to spend a lot of money, running a lot of tests, getting a lot of information. Because they say, oh, your blood pressure is too high. And I say, it's been this high for the past 10 years of my life. Can you pull the fucking records before you waste my time? At this moment, it is higher than the normal person. It is scarily high. It is life-reducing high. But it is also my baseline. It's not been a few months. It's been over a decade. It's my baseline. My blood pressure's so high, my nose be sweating for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, didn't mean to go on that tangent. So, but we see it in courtrooms when witnesses are judged through racial or class stereotypes. Do you not know in United States law, judging someone's guilt by their emotional reaction is not only accepted, it's treated as fact. In the US legal system. That's how we determine someone's innocence or guilt in lack of evidence. Well, they got really angry when you accused them of doing that, so I think they did it. This is America. We see it in workplaces when one person's idea is ignored until someone with more status says the same thing. All of these are rooted in fallacious thinking because none of them are verifying how we know what we know. That's why epistemic responsibility is not just about checking facts. It's about checking the biases that shape who we believe, who we doubt, who we refuse to hear. So watch this, just to give you a great example. A white man can be on atheist call-in shows cussing people out regardless of gender any day of the week. A black man can say, hey, you and your wife, if y'all got a problem with me, keep it off my public page, leave me the fuck alone. And now he's a misogynist. In the atheist community, a white man can be accused of throwing a woman down the stairwell, and the black man who's bringing attention to it, using the same language that the community uses on people they don't like, oh, he's more problematic than the person who was accused of throwing the person down the stairs. This is a problem of epistemic responsibility. Let's talk about hermeneutical injustice. Hermeneutical injustice is when people experience something real, but society has not given them the language to fully name it. Okay? It's not simply that people are ignored, it's that their reality remains unnamed. Miranda Fricker uses this concept to show how injustice can happen at the level of knowledge itself. When marginalized people are excluded from the institutions that shape language, law, media, academia, medicine, religion, and politics, their experiences can remain invisible to the wider culture. So a person suffers twice. First, from the experience itself, and then again from not having the vocabulary or social recognition of such vocabulary needed to communicate what happened. A classic example is sexual harassment. Before that language became widely available, many women knew that something was wrong in the workplace. They knew that, hey, this shouldn't be happening. This can't be appropriate. But yet there was no law that said it shouldn't be happening. There was no language that said it shouldn't be happening. There was no studies that said it shouldn't be happening. So they did not have a shared public term to name the pattern. That's just Hank being Hank. You know how Bob is. You know Joey's like that with everybody. But once we can name like that as harassment, not as in harassment to be touched. That was a joke from high school that I busted out laughing at in the middle of class one time. You know? They didn't have the shared language to name the pattern. Once that language became available, the harm became easier to identify, challenge, and organize around. When children were considered property, there was no language for child abuse. When wives were considered the property of their husbands, there was no language for spousal rape. You got to understand these things. When gay people were not a part of the conversation, there wasn't a word for homophobia. That's why epistemic responsibility matters. Truth is not only about checking facts, it's also about making sure people have the language, credibility, and safety to tell the truth about their own lives. A lot of religion trains people to confuse certainty with truth. You know? A lot of people train people to confuse certainty with truth. And I'm going to use some of the trolls that have been popping in on the chat to just demonstrate it. The way Christians behave, and Christians aren't the only one who trolls like this. I've seen atheists trolling Christian content. And I'm like, the level of immaturity that takes, the level of confident immaturity that takes. And the reason I don't engage, because I know your life is broken. If these are the types of things you're doing, your life is broken. You are miserable at home. If you have kids, you are likely abusing them. I'm not trying to just say you are, but the stats lean in that direction. If this is the type of behavior you engage in, because you don't take any responsibility for what you know. So people are taught to say, I know God is real. And when people say that, I say that means you don't know what know, God, real, or I means. I know the Bible is true. I know the Spirit told me. I know this is God's will. I know they are deceived. I know this is demonic. But the question is, how do you know? How do you know any of that? Not how strongly do you feel it, not how long you've believed it, not how many people around you agree with it, not how much comfort it gives you, not how much fear you feel when you question it, but actually, how do you know? Because when people make claims about God, morality, sexuality, politics, family, education, science, and public policy based on insufficient evidence, they are not just having private faith, they are shaping public harm. And this next part is important because leaving religion does not automatically make somebody epistemically responsible. I don't think you can be epistemically responsible if your whole focus is on a bad guy. My focus is not on a bad guy. That's why I don't engage with trolls. I have sympathy for trolls. That's why my response is often poor fella. And I mean it from the depths of my non-existent soul. Poor fella. I hate what you're doing to your life. I'm sad that you're going through that right now. It breaks my heart that delusion is destroying your opportunities right as we speak. Leaving religion does not make somebody epistemically responsible. As again, I say, like, you can tell it every time, like almost every conversation I've been in, the conversation is when did you deconstruct? And that's an assumption. And it's a flawed assumption. It's a horribly flawed assumption to believe that everybody who left religion deconstructed. Because now we're making people experts on shit they've never studied. I've watched people who are functionally poor spend hundreds of dollars on books to study a Bible that they don't believe in anymore just so they can keep up with their favorite content creator. That ain't healthy, y'all. You can leave Christianity and still carry the same bad habits, believing claims because your side said them, demonizing people before verifying facts, confusing outrage with evidence, treating accusations as convictions, using labels carelessly, mistaking skepticism for intelligence, turning communities into echo chambers, and assuming anti-religious means accurate. Atheism answers one question, and one question alone. Do you believe in a God? Because I practice epistemic responsibility, I do not believe in a God. There is insufficient evidence to justify a belief. But it does not answer the question, are you fair? Are you careful? Are you honest? Are you responsible with information? Can you change your mind? Do you know how to evaluate your claims? This is why epistemic responsibility matters long beyond religion. I practice it in how I treat people. I practice it in how I treat the news. I hate the news nowadays. Journalistic responsibility seems to have gone out the window. Just say no to religion. I love that. I love that. So I want to kind of start closing up here. I want to talk about the difference between skepticism and suspicion. Skepticism is disciplined. Suspicion is reactionary. Listen, I know reactionary is popular. It's not me. My heroes are people like Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Toussaint Louverture, Nat Turner, Martin Delaney, Hubert Henry Harrison. Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, and Bobby Seale. I am not a reactionary. I am a revolutionary. When people come to me about activist claims, that's the filter that I run it through. Is this something that Malcolm would even be working on? Is this something that Hubert would even take seriously? Skepticism is disciplined. Suspicion is reactionary. Skepticism asks for evidence. Suspicion assumes deception. Skepticism is open to correction. Suspicion protects itself from correction. Skepticism slows down bad conclusion. Suspicion creates conspiracy thinking. A lot of people who call themselves skeptics are really just suspicious of whatever threatens their worldview. That's not critical thinking. That's fear with a decent vocabulary. So as I wind this ship down, I want to give you some questions to think about. And if you really about that life, clip this part so you'll have it for you. And you don't even got to do this because nothing I'm saying is anything that's just me. Before you believe something, ask yourself, what is exactly being claimed? What evidence supports it? Who benefits if I believe this? What would count as disconfirming evidence? Have I checked the original source? And that one is big for me. I call that the proximity gap. Somebody wanted me to call somebody a racist. I said, I don't know if that person is a racist or not. I don't know that person. Never even heard of this person before you brought them up to my attention. Well, Darante, you should call them a racist because we're telling you that they are racist. What you're asking me to do is to jump over a proximity gap. I'm not close enough to the situation to have that information. And I just so happen to be educated in the branch of science that actually studies this shit. So my definition is a little different than yours. Well, did you hear what he said about that little black kid? Have you heard what my grandmama say about little black kids? Racism is a system. I'm not looking for people who say bad words. I'm trying to undermine the whole damn system. That's the difference between you and I. Okay, so proximity gap. Proximity gap is I'm not close enough to make that call. That's why when Nicki Minaj says, hey, the Nigerians over there just slaughtering Christians, this heifer ain't close enough to know that. It's a proximity gap. Proximity gap. Too far away. Am I reacting to the claim or the person making it? Am I applying the same standard to my side that I apply to theirs? Am I applying the same standard to my side that they're applying to theirs? So there was a situation where, and y'all know I've mentioned it a few times, where there was an accusation made against a popular person in the secular community that they threw somebody down the stairs and tried to sexually assault them. That the person who was the alleged victim, their sister, has been speaking up throughout the community, sharing information. Other people in the community have been speaking up, and those people have been laughed at, ridiculed, and shamed. Anybody who has spoken up have been sent private messages of the victim trying to exploit her sexuality and say, look, she was actually the one wanting this. This is the atheist community doing this. Some of your favorite content creators. It's them. And so their defense became, well, the alleged victim actually doesn't want this. And nobody's actually spoken with the alleged victim, they say. They say we're doing what the alleged victim wants us to do. The alleged victim wanted this to go away, and we're protecting her rights. This is the secular community saying this. Atheist community. I'm not talking about nobodies here, y'all. And so that person, the alleged victim, decides to go write a 10-page letter detailing what happened from her perspective and goes to have it notarized to confirm that she is indeed okay with other people sharing her story. And do you know how the atheist community responded? They put out a video about what a notary doesn't prove. This is a real video, like on YouTube right now. What a notary doesn't prove. And what a notary doesn't prove, which they're absolutely right, a notary doesn't prove that the information in the letter is accurate. But that was not the purpose of notarization, and nor was that the claim that they made. The claim that they made was that the victim did not want people speaking up on their behalf. And the notary proves that the victim, because that's what a notary does, a notary says that the person who signed this is in front of me right now. Am I applying the same standard to my side that I apply to theirs? Would I share this if it made my side look bad? Am I calling this obvious because it's true or because my group repeats it? And what harm could happen if I'm wrong? And that's one that sits with me. That's one that sits with me. What harm could happen if I'm wrong? I don't have to believe I know what happened to not know what's wrong. I don't have to believe that I know what happened, even though I was there. I was. I spoke with both immediately afterwards, the day afterwards. I felt so sick to my stomach about the event that as soon as I got home, I reached out to both of them again. So my closing charge is epistemic responsibility is not about becoming cold, robotic, or emotionless. It's about becoming honest. It's about caring enough about truth that you do not use your feelings as a substitute for facts. It's about caring enough about people that you do not spread claims that you have not verified or justified. It is about caring enough about justice that you do not let prejudice decide who gets believed. It is about caring enough about freedom that you do not build your life on inherited lies, because the goal is not just to stop believing in bad ideas. The goal is to become the kind of person who does not need bad ideas to feel safe. That's the work. That's the responsibility. And that's what it means to take truth seriously. Thank you all for joining me for this conversation today. Man, we got into it. We got into it. And so to soften this up a little bit, as we close out, I'm gonna give you all some nice affirmation music, because this has been heavy today, but I hope it's been helpful. And I'm sure you will let me know whether you're watching live or later in the chat. Thank you so much, man. I really enjoy all of y'all. Until next time, folks.
Everything that's thrown at me, I am now becoming everything I chose to be. I am now affirming greater power is in me. I am never running from my own capacity.